the Keystone Sports Network.
Hello and welcome back into the Keystone Kickoff Show. I'm Jim Galante along with Shaun Gold for more of Shauns Take. This is where Shaun takes a look at the upcoming college football schedule for this weekend, and he gives us the winners. Although, Shaun, last week, not a good week, was it?
No, I got my heart broken by a couple of these teams. So I wasn't too happy with some of these games. So we're looking to have a bounce back week now.
I hope so. The good news is overall, still a winning record, 8-6-1. And I thought the heartbreaker for you was the Ohio State Notre Dame game where you had Notre Dame and Ohio State literally scores the touchdown in the last second and chooses to kick the extra point, and you end up with a push instead of a win.
I was ready to get my pads back on and go play some defense on that final drive because all we needed was one play to stop them, and the clock runs out or it's a turnover on downs or something. So it was a frustrating watch right there.
And you know what, Shaun? You joke about getting the pads on and back on the field. Considering the fact that Notre Dame only had 10 players on the field, you could have been eligible to go out there and be the 11th man.
And, I've never played defensive line, but they were missing their left end, which is right where that ball went on that touchdown run. So maybe just me being there would have made a difference.
Just throw your body in front of one of those offensive linemen. All right, enough of the past. Again, overall, you're 8-6-1. That's what counts. Let's see how we do this week. And I will make one last reference to last week. And last week, I gave you one I told you so, and I'm not even sure which game it was for. And I mentioned that I'm not the I told you so kind of guy. I'm really not. However, I'll give you one more this week. You got off of our Penn State Nittany Lions. You thought Iowa would cover that, 14.5 point spread. I questioned you on that. I just want to tell you, if it makes you feel any better, I had my money on the Nittany Lions.
Well, I was concerned I wasn't going to be invited back after saying that. So I'm just happy to be here this week. And, we'll see if I'm back on the Nittany Lion train this week or not.
Well, let's start there. It's Penn State is at Northwestern, and the spread has been climbing. Early in the week, I saw 25.5 points somewhere. Then I saw 26.5 points, which I put down for my notes. And then I checked it one last time before we got on the air here, and it's now up to 27 points. That is a lot of points there, Shaun.
It is a lot of points, and that makes this a very hard prediction. But the one thing I do like is that Iowa, even though they're not that great this year, I think they are still a better team than Northwestern. And that's saying something here. So Penn State's defense has been absolutely phenomenal. But what I'm looking for this week is the offense to be better. The conditions weren't great against Iowa, and the offense still produced, but it wasn't a huge yards per play type of game. It was long drives down the field. This week, I expect Penn State to open up the playbook a little bit more, have some more big explosive plays, which really, to this date, has been their weakness on offense. The one thing that's concerned me with Penn State is that they're not getting as many of these explosive plays because driving down the field is great, but in big-time games, you need that 50-yard touchdown to bust a game open against an Ohio State or Michigan type of team. So I think we're going to see Penn State have a little bit more of those explosive plays this week. And for that reason, I'm back on the Nittany Lion train right now. We're going Penn State to get the win and cover the spread.
All right. How about that? Perhaps you learned your lesson last week there, Shaun. Let's go to another interesting team. They've been getting attention all year. That's the Colorado Buffaloes. And there was no doubt you were on the Colorado train for several weeks here. Last week, that bubble burst against Oregon. Oregon just schooled them. And now Colorado is up against another high-powered offense with USC. Colorado is getting, again, the 3 touchdowns, 21.5 points in this one. This one, though, is at Colorado. How do you see that one going?
I gotta say the line is really interesting. On a surface level, when you look at this game, Oregon just beat Colorado by over 30 points, 36 points. Now you go to play USC. Initially, I kind of thought that USC might be favored by 30 points in this game with Caleb Williams and that high-powered offense. But the big difference to me between Oregon and USC is these defenses. Oregon's defensive line absolutely killed Colorado's offense. Shador Sanders had zero time back there to pick apart the defense, which is what he's so good at. And the one promising thing from that game, Shador Sanders did not throw an interception and turn the ball over. So despite the fact that it wasn't a great game, they weren't getting beat off turnovers. And this week, USC's defensive line isn't going to be able to control the game like that. And I do think we'll start to get into more of a high-scoring game I was expecting with the Oregon game, where we do see Colorado not stop USC's offense, but score on USC's defense. USC's defense has been beatable. Their secondary has gotten exposed by some teams that are a lot less skillful than Colorado. So the game's back in Boulder, like you said. Colorado's going to be ready going into this game. The last thing they want is to get embarrassed on national television 2 weeks in a row. So I'm not saying Colorado's going to win this game, but USC needs to be ready because Colorado's going to want to bounce back right now. And with that, I think we will see a little bit more of a shootout type setting and see Colorado cover that 21.5-point spread.
Yeah, Colorado is just an absolutely fascinating team. And I'm wondering if after a loss, did the bubble completely burst? Or, as you said, they're back home. They're playing a defense that is vulnerable. So it's going to be really fascinating to see that game. But I do believe this is one of those games where if USC can cover that 21.5 points and win big, that's it. The shine is off the Colorado Buffaloes, and we'll stop seeing all the attention that we've been seeing, this first 4 weeks of the season. Okay, from there, let's go to a Southeast Conference game. Let's go to LSU at Ole Miss. And this is interesting because each one of those teams has a loss. Ole Miss lost to Alabama last week. They had a lead at halftime, and Alabama took over in the second half, one going away, one by 2 touchdowns. LSU, they have that early loss to Florida State. Now, LSU was a team when the season started. They were a top 10 team. Some people thought this is a college football playoff team. So now you have both of those teams with one loss. Neither one could afford to lose this game. This is the one where are they a contender or not? And this game is at Ole Miss, and LSU is favored by 2.5 points, Shaun.
Going back to last week, two disappointing performances from both of these programs. As you mentioned, Ole Miss was up against Alabama at halftime and completely fell apart in the second half. All we needed them from our picks was for them to cover in the second half and not lose by more than a touchdown. Well, the second half came and they didn't show up for that. So that was frustrating there. And then from LSU's perspective, they nearly lost to Arkansas. A slow start to that game almost cost them what you really could say their season, because one loss is okay. If they win out, they can still get to the college football playoffs. But nearly losing to Arkansas is definitely a major concern. So this week, what I like to look at is who do I think has a better shot of bouncing back from a poor performance? And I got to say, I think it's LSU. I think they're the better overall team. I think this team is still very, very good. And I think they're going to have a little wake-up call after nearly blowing their season against Arkansas. And I think they come into Ole Miss, get a big-time win by more than 2.5 points, and kind of revive that energy back into Baton Rouge.
I'm with you. I think this is, again, just one of those situations where LSU is just playing the better team. And if they're both have an incentive for the game, which they both do, I think LSU, I think that's a good call, a very good call. Let's go now to kind of the ACC. Notre Dame is at Duke. Notre Dame, we know they are coming off of what has to be a really emotional loss. We talked about it. Ohio State got that last-second win against them at Notre Dame. They are now at Duke. Notre Dame is a 5.5-point favorite. Duke announced their presence early in the season when they clubbed Clemson 28-7. Although I guess the stats in that game, it wasn't quite as dominant as 28-7 makes it sound. What do you think? Can the Irish come back after a tough loss last week?
Well, let's start with Duke, and they are having an incredible season. But like you said, coming off a tough loss, Notre Dame is looking to come in and make a statement. The 5.5 point line here means this is supposed to be a pretty even and close game. But me personally, I'll take both Notre Dame's offense and defense over Duke's units. So couple that with the fact that this is a very, very hungry Notre Dame football team right now. And if Notre Dame wins out right now as well, they're going to the college football playoffs. They can overcome that one loss to Ohio State and still get in the playoffs as long as they win out. So I think this week they set the tone for the rest of their season. They have big games coming up too. They play USC this year. That's going to be a huge matchup. This week is a tone-setting week for the Notre Dame team. If they get a big win here, they build that confidence that we're built for this and we can overcome a brutal loss to Ohio State in a game where they know they should have won. So I like Notre Dame to make a big statement here. I like them to win by probably a touchdown or more and show people that one loss to Ohio State is not going to slow us down. We're resetting the tone right now for the rest of the season. So give me Notre Dame here.
I think that's a good call. And the fact that, as you said, a close loss to a top 10 team in the last second, boy, if you're competing against other one-loss teams, I think that's a quality loss. Finally, let's get to a surprising Kansas team at Texas. Remember, a few weeks back, Texas had that win against Alabama. Texas is favored by 16.5, Shaun.
Yeah, so the clear thing in this game is we have an exciting Kansas team against the number 3 ranked team in the country in Texas. Texas is clearly the better team here on both sides of the ball. Kansas is good, but Texas has been great. However, I do have to say, Kansas is going to pull all the tricks out of their bag for this game. I think they're going to come in and give Texas a bit of a wake-up call. I'm not saying Kansas is going to pull off the upset and win this game, but I do think it's going to be closer than people expect, and I'll take Kansas with the points here.
Very good. All right, that's the last game. Real quickly, Shaun, tell our listeners where they could get more of Shaun's Take.
Yeah, so you can listen to the Shauns Take podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, you name it, we're on it. And then also on social media at Shauns Take on TikTok and Twitter. Make sure you follow us and join the community.
Very good, Shaun. Fingers crossed for a better week this week. I liked your picks this week. So you get my stamp of approval. If that means anything to anybody, I'm not sure it does. Anyway, thank you all for listening to our show. Make sure you join us next time on the Keystone Kickoff Show.
Keystone Sports Network.